thank you guys for coming out tonight. We have a tradition at the coalition that anytime we teach or gather, we put up a funny feeling scale and ask people to just check in. How are you doing tonight, right now at 6:32 on a Thursday? What raccoon best represents how you're feeling right now? Which is good. Okay, there's a color. Yesterday. I know. It's like
I'm going 9.
9?
Yeah.
You're feeling a 9.
Nine's scores. What else we got? Okay. Any other numbers? Anybody want to share why they feel whatever number they're feeling? Yeah.
How do you feel after like 7 lines?
Yeah, that's a good question. Yeah, it depends on the client, right?
Yeah, true.
Yeah.
Well, mine comes after 7, and I've already had 7, not pizza, but you know, after dinner, relax, kind of done with the day.
It's just such an easy way to sort of lightly just say, how are you doing, right? Without pressure. So if you're somebody who leads meetings or gathers with folks or has a bulletin board in the gym, highly encourage you to also create your own funny feeling scales. You could do it with faces of people working out. We have so many iterations of this at the coalition. So for those of you that I don't know, I'm Sara McKeown White. I've been in the Valley since 2011. I'm a licensed clinical professional counselor and supervisor, which is just a really long way of saying that I'm a licensed mental health clinician. Was in private practice for a long time before stepped into the executive director role at the Mental Health Coalition. And so I'm sort of wearing 2 hats tonight. One is somebody who has been in private practice and worked with a lot of clients over the years. And then 2, as someone who leads an organization that really is designed to promote mental health and wellness in the Valley. I got here because I was a yoga teacher living in South Carolina in graduate school. My program, this was a long time ago, before the use of yoga and mindfulness and meditation was widely accepted in the mental health field. And I wanted to write my PhD, my dissertation, on the use of those modalities in counseling. And my dissertation board said, that's not very evidence-based. And I said, great, there is a yoga studio in Driggs, Idaho that needs somebody to live in the back of it and manage it for a year. I'll go do that and prove you wrong and then come back and get my PhD. And that was in 2011, and I never went back and I never wrote my dissertation. And now we know that some of the things, and we'll talk a little bit about some of those things, is really helpful for managing mental health and staying well and physical injury, right? So I blame my husband. He's why I never left. So. Yeah, met him I moved to town on a Wednesday, met him on Friday, and we were like engaged a year later. So, and the skiing is really bad in South Carolina. So tonight I'm just going to give you some context or some stats about why it's important to talk about mental health as it relates to being an athlete or being somebody who moves or lives in Teton Valley. What gets in the way when we are injured, how we interrupt our own healing process sometimes, what helps us recover. And then we're going to practice because I'm a clinician and I really believe in experiential learning. So sorry, I'm not just going to talk for an hour and a half. I'm going to actually make you practice some things. So hopefully you set by somebody that you really like. Okay, who's had an injury? I know, like now's the time if you want to change your seating. But who's had an injury that took longer than you expected to heal? Okay, everybody. Great. Anybody want to volunteer what that process was like?
Sucky.
Yeah. What was sucky about it? What was sucky about it?
My rotator cuff muscles after my shoulder replacement, I still have a divot in the back of my shoulder. That is how slow.
Yeah.
I'm regaining muscle.
Yeah, it's a long time, a long process.
From a year ago.
Yeah.
have like the biggest list of why it sucks.
Yes. Oh, good. That's what I want to hear. Let's list it.
Sure, it causes physical pain.
Yes.
I don't get my dopamine and endorphins.
Yep.
It messes with my social connection. It undermines my identity. It
Yes.
like feels bad.
Yes.
It just feels, I don't get good sleep because I'm
Yep.
not exercising during
Yep.
the day.
Yeah. Yeah.
I feel broken.
Yeah.
Gets more expensive too.
Yeah,
Yeah.
totally.
Yeah.
Yep, yeah.
Yeah.
I remember having paid my out-of-pocket match 2 years in a
Yeah.
row. It just, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. These are all good things that hopefully we'll talk about. So it didn't look linear, right? Your healing process didn't look linear. It looks sort of like this. This is a really interesting scale, specifically around like disasters and PTSD and stuff, but I think getting injured is sort of similar, right? You have sort of the impact and you're like, okay, it's like when people rally around you to help support you, right? And you feel like you really have community and you're walking around on your crutches and you have your like knee brace on and people are opening doors and bringing you meals. And then it like, everybody else goes back to their real life and you're still there sort of dealing with the aftermath, sometimes for long periods of time, right? And then even, you know, it's not a straight line, right? And so this process of getting better, whether it's physically or mentally, is often frustrating because it's not easy, right? It's all the things and it impacts every sphere of our life. 65 to 70%, depending on what research studies you look at, of athletes will be injured each year, right? And globally, 4 million people sustain some kind of injury annually. Like, this is a lot of people. So getting hurt is really, unfortunately, kind of normal. I thought that this was really interesting, that athletes that have sort of, and they were sort of looking at college athletes in particular in this study, that already had sort of anxiety or depression were either like 2 or 2.5 times more likely to get injured in the season than those folks that didn't already have anxiety and depression, which is really fascinating, especially in the context of Idaho having the 5th highest rate of death by suicide and ranking 48th in the country for prevalence of mental health disorder and access to care, right? So if we think from this study that we are more likely to get injured if we have a pre-existing mental health condition, and then what the stats in Idaho for how many of us have mental health conditions, I think it makes our numbers go up, right? I mean, everybody in this room raised their hand to say, hey, I've sustained some sort of injury, right? I need people, as the executive director of the Mental Health Coalition, to know how to take care of themselves and other people, because this is our clinician to resident ratio. So for every one resident, we have about, or for every one clinician, we have about 700 people that we have to take care of. I can't take care of that many people, right? So I need all of you to know how to take care of yourselves and other people, especially because we're likely to get injured here. We do a lot of risky things. We push our bodies in ways that in the South we don't do, right? We've done this really, really interesting thing where we have divided mental health and physical health, our brains from our bodies, right? There's this huge disconnect. And I don't know about you, but like my brain is attached to my body. I mean, so I'm not sure why we have created this idea that mental health and physical health is separate. It's not. We have also created this idea that mental health and mental health means mental health condition, right? So every one of you walked in the room with mental health. Not all of you walked in with a mental health condition. So just the same way that you come here and work out, or you ride your bike, or you go ski, or you hike, or you do your activity to attend to your physical health, we also need to do things to attend to our mental health as well, but we often separate those things. And then we think attending to our mental health is like just going to therapy. But if we only have one clinician for every 700 resident, we can't all go to therapy, right? Individual therapy is not going to be the thing that saves all of us. And so how do we sort of attend to both parts of these things? Okay, who has ever like hit their thumb with a hammer or touched a stove, right? What is that process like when you physically injure yourself, right? Is it only physical sensation, or is there like another reaction? Right? Yeah, what'd you say? Yeah, there's fear, right?
It kind of hurts your feelings.
Yes! Yeah, there's like an emotional reaction, right? It hurts. You might, if you're in my house, you'd probably say a naughty word, right? like really loudly, right? And then there can be like, I can't believe I did that, right? And then the opposite is true, right? If you notice a time that you felt anxious or upset or scared, what does that feel like in your body? Is there a physical sensation that goes with those things? Right, so then why do we say, this injury is just my shoulder injury or just my knee injury, right? We know that these two things are related. Lindsay, do you want to talk a little bit about just the correlation between physical injury and mental health stuff?
Right.
Because you have really great lived experience.
Oh yeah. Well, first off, I work with Sara at the Mental Health Coalition. I also work here at the gym, so worlds collide today. So Sara actually told me she was gonna call me, but I wasn't expecting it right now. So I had a pretty severe traumatic brain injury about 6 years ago, or 7 years ago this August, and I didn't realize I had a head injury until 9 months into it. So it was actually sort of a really harrowing type scenario where I hit my head, I crashed my bike, hit my face, went to the ER, they didn't diagnose me with any head injury, and then I slipped into pretty severe depression and anxiety, and I had other life stuff going on, so it was pretty stressful, and so I didn't realize I had a head injury, and it was really interesting to have this, for the first time for me in my life, have an invisible illness where I was pretty severely depressed, ended up in a couple treatment places and hospitals over that span of 9 months, and then didn't really understand what was going on. It was really hard to talk about. Sara and I were talking today about the fact that I wasn't gonna put a GoFundMe page out for depression that I was suffering, even though I spent probably $40,000 trying to keep myself alive during those 9 months. Where it can be really different when you have something diagnosis. So the mental health stuff was just it was really interesting, and it stemmed from a physical injury, but it turned into the symptoms were depression and anxiety. So I don't know if that answers what you wanted me to talk about. Yeah.
And that impacts, right, how well you were able to recover too, right? If you think about the thoughts, the feelings, the sensations that go along when we have an injury, right? You already named you can't sleep, right? And sleep is lack of sleep is one of the #1 indicators for suicide, a suicidal mode or a psychiatric break. It's the first thing we assess for is how well has somebody been sleeping. And when we're chronically stressed or we're chronically in pain, our body responds, right? We have higher cortisol, we have, our feel-good hormones change, right? We just experience the world in a different way. Our immune system, folks with anxiety and depression, their immune systems don't work as effectively. Cardiovascular symptoms, they don't metabolize things as well. So if we're in chronic pain or we're injured and we can't move our bodies in the way that we're used to, it's really easy for us then to experience a mental health condition as a result. And there's some really interesting, did I put it on here? Let's see. Right, that stress can extend healing time of wounds by 25% or more, right? Just because of the way that our bodies are working so hard to process and heal that physical energy. And if we add some stress, because I can't do the things that I used to, and I'm nervous and I'm anxious and I'm can't sleep, then we actually slow the healing process of our body down. And how many recovery plans include checking in on your mental health and wellness, teaching you how to deal with stress, teaching you how to deal with the loss of identity? I've been to PT, I've had 4 major abdominal surgeries in over 5 years, radically changed my life. and not a single one of those doctors recommended pelvic PT. Not a single one. Odd, right? Like none of them were like, oh yeah, and how are you doing emotionally, Sarah? Right? Just it's not something often that gets included by doctors, by PTs. I think it's changing a little bit. There are some great practitioners, especially in town, that I think watch for some mental health things and assess for that and include that. But by and large, we miss this when we go, to get our ACL redone or nobody is making you a mental health and wellness plan as part of that, which is really unfortunate. Part of the reason why this happens, right, when we're injured is, did you know that we have more than just our 5 senses? So we, actually there's 4 types of perception, right? So our bodies are aware of all sorts of things at any given time, right? Right now, you are looking at my face to see if I'm a safe person based on what my face looks like, what my body language is, how I'm breathing, how I'm talking. You also can be aware of what's going on in your body, inside your body, how you know you're hungry or hot or thirsty. You're also aware of your body in space, right? How am I moving? Am I balanced or have equilibrium? And then you have those sort of the things that we think about our sense organs, right? What's going on external of me? What can I see? What can I smell? What can I hear? And when we're injured or we experience trauma, which is what an injury is, our ability for our brain to effectively perceive gets altered, right? We don't process sensory information the same way that we used to, which again is very upsetting to our bodies, and so then we can have sort of that fear, that anxiety, that depression that comes along with that. This is sort of pseudoscience, but I think it's really interesting, so I threw it in. This is a really, really, really old study. This Japanese scientist, I don't know if you all have heard of this, but he put water in different vials and then sent them different places. And some were to sort of monks that prayed over them, and other people said loving, kind things, and then other people said really awful, terrible, mean things. And then he analyzed what does the structure of water look like after his, sort of been exposed to this languaging. And you can see the difference in how the structure of the water organizes itself after hearing these things. And so maybe this isn't totally accurate, not 100% true, but I think we can all have that lived felt experience of the way that I talk to myself, the way that I describe myself, the way that I describe my injury or my abilities really influences how I feel, right? And then can influence what I think and then how I behave. So when you have been injured, what's the hardest part? Is it the physical part? Is it the mental part? Is it both? Yeah.
Mental.
Yeah. What's hard about that mental piece for you?
Well, I think the physical part, as you said, you go to PT or you go to the doctor, you go to whoever, and they give you a plan of what you're going to do. But as to the mental part, there's really no one that is going to coach you, or that realizes that you need the support in that fashion. As to your your invisible injury. I mean, it's one thing to be on crutches and, like you said, the community kind of rallies around you, but then you go home and they rally around the physical need that you have. So, I think the mental part is much harder.
I also think the mental part of your brain, no, we're gonna do that anyway.
You're not supposed to do that.
And that is what I do. Because I want to do that. And my brain's you could do that. I mean, this is still gonna hurt after anyway.
I love that some clients sometimes that thoughts and feelings are actually not facts.
Right.
We think they are, right? We tend to believe them a lot, but it turns out our brain can lie to us. It's not actually fact. And we'll talk about what we call cognitive diffusion a little bit later. But our brain can be really strong, right? And send us these really intense messages that we feel we really have to act on. And it's really hard that if our bodies don't respond in that way. Or it makes it worse, right? And then you're like, man, I can't believe I just did that. Like, it made it worse, even though I felt like I really needed to do that. Any other thoughts about just that, like, physical part or mental part of being injured? So we get in our own way a lot, right? I think you kind of named it, a little bit of like, man, I have these thoughts, but then I do things that maybe I like shouldn't, even if my body, I'm not listening to my body always. And we can over-identify, right, with the part of us that moves or enjoys our sport or as an athlete. I really love Simone Biles because I think she's a great example of having this identity as a very successful Olympian and athlete, and then she took time off, right? Because it was too hard. And so how do we get in our own ways and we make our identity one thing, right? And movement or working out or hiking or biking or skiing is the only way we have to negotiate or deal with what's going on inside, or I hear all the time, people at the coalition, we get so many calls that are like, I was fine, and then I got injured, and now I'm going crazy, right? Because movement is the way that I take care of my mental health. And I'm like, if you only take care of your mental health in one way, that's a problem. And that you're not really then fully addressing your mental health. Because if that one way goes away, and your whole source of identity and coping is that one thing, and you lose it, it's not good, right? We give out a lot of sessions for folks that have experienced injury that now are dealing with that mental aspect, because it's the whole reason, right? And they can't see another way of relating with themselves, with other people, with experiencing joy, pleasure, when that thing is taken away from them. So this is always my plug to like rest and take time off. It's an important part of the process, and I know that's really hard for everybody that lives in Teton Valley. And then we compare ourselves, right? This just happened, last night, this morning? And so we live in a place where we are bombarded, right, by messages of people doing really big, amazing things, which is incredible. But then it's really easy, especially when we're injured, to then be like, well, I can't do that. That's not fair. Why I should be able to do that. Why can't I do that? And no shade on the people that are, right? But it's so easy when we are exposed to certain kinds of bodies or certain abilities that it's so easy to just be like, well, gosh, like I must be terrible because I can't set this like crazy world record. We also compare ourselves a lot of times to ourselves, right? Or our past selves. And so if you notice in you, is it more, I'm looking around the gym and I'm noticing that, well, Lindsay is like lifting, 4 times more than I am. Or is it more, gosh, like I used to be able to do X? Like what shows up more for you? Do you compare yourself more to your past self or to sort of like the people around you? Or both? Yeah.
I call her that bitch in my head.
Yeah. My body has changed a lot since living here, right? And having to go through like a gazillion abdominal surgeries. And sometimes I look back on photos of myself where I was like, God, I was so fat in that photo. And then I look at like now and I'm like, why did I spend all of that time judging myself and then even being like, oh God, I really got to get back to yoga teacher Sara body, right? Like, oh, I can't believe that I'm not like yoga teacher Sara body anymore. I think as women, it can be really hard that we have this image in ourselves of like what we're supposed to look like or how we look like in the past. And we're sort of trying to go backwards instead of being like, well, what is my body now? And how do I use my body now? What does health and wellness look like now in this body? Then we get to all these fun things that we can do.
The photo.
Yeah. Bring up it. Are you noticing any sensations in your body? We also know So then we avoid, or then we overdo to like make up or sort of deal with that fear, which is also not real great and not real helpful. We also know that people that sort of catastrophize their pain or really focus on their pain, studies show that they actually experience more pain for longer. So it's sort of this idea in neuroscience, we say that neurons that fire together wire together, so the more I'm focused on something, the stronger the connection I'm making with that thing, even if it's not necessarily helpful or positive. So when we let those sort of feelings of pain or that fear of re-injury sort of be the thing that we focus on, we kind of self-sabotage ourselves a little bit. So you're all here and you all raised your hand saying that I have an injury, but you walked in here, you got here. So what do you do to cope when you can't move or when you're injured? Oh, I should have brought mine.
When I had a couple of surgeries back, I mean, it's been like 15 years since my last surgery maybe, but I had two in a row, 2 knee surgeries, 2 years in a row. And I took art classes while I was on crutches and couldn't really do anything else, which was sort of cool. But then I like didn't do art at all when I wasn't injured.
It didn't stick.
It didn't really stick. I mean, I still like doing it, but I just don't make time for it. When I can actually move, but it was.
I like to listen to music on vinyl.
Ooh, yeah.
Vinyl is like, an album from beginning to end.
Yeah.
Hosting. So if you can't go hike with your friends, you can come.
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. What else?
I knit a sweater and ended up seeing a quick amount of time.
The more injured you are, the faster you knit.
I read a lot. Sad Buddhist literature.
Sad.
I had a big concussion like Lindsay did, and I couldn't read. But normally I
Yeah.
love to read.
Yeah.
And that's why I can listen to music, but I can't read.
Yeah.
So it's like, if you have a lot of things in your toolbox, you can't use that one right now.
Yes. Yeah.
But
Yeah,
in
exactly.
everyday life, I like to read.
Yeah, I played video games on my phone for like 4 months straight when I was sick.
A friend gave me a video game console.
Which is sort of, it doesn't feel that healthy, but at that time, like literally, I couldn't like watch TV because I couldn't follow a plot line in my brain. And so it was literally the only thing I could do.
Yeah.
But it doesn't feel that healthy.
Ooh, we'll say more about that.
Well, I don't
Why
know.
isn't that
Like,
healthy?
right, I was gonna say, the other thing I do a lot of when I'm injured is watch TV. And like in my brain, watching TV and playing video games on my phone while there are ways for me to like calm my nervous system down. I don't like particularly associate them with like, oh, this is really productive and like good for you.
I think it's productive.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah, totally. That's like my limiting belief about it.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
I think that's why rest is so triggering, especially when you're injured, because you feel like you're not being productive with it.
Mm-hmm.
If you're not at PT, you're not being productive.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I feel like there's a whole like 2-hour or weekend workshop in Teton Valley about rest and teaching people how to rest, because we just don't do it that well. And I'm not convinced me standing here and being like, yeah, rest is actually very productive. It's part of the healing process. It's good for your mental health and your physical health. Like, you guys are not gonna believe me. But I'm just gonna plant that seed, right? And then if you wanna get stronger and you wanna get better in your physical body and in your mental health, you have to rest, right? In counseling, we call it integration, right? And so my clients can't get better if they're just doing all of the time. They have to have space to integrate what we have learned and had insight around and really embody that and know that before they then can go out and apply it, right? We have seasons for a reason. Winter is important. There's a lot of stuff happening underneath the ground, even though it looks like nothing is happening, right? So this is my plug to please make rest part of your physical health and your gym routine, right? Because Lacey, do you have people come in and just like go hard all the time?
Yeah, and then you have to yell at them.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because they will injure themselves or they will be chronically sick.
Right.
I mean, rest is important. A lot of people in this valley, they think that if they take a week off, they're gonna be deficient in a week. And it's
Yes.
like, actually, you're gonna have stronger gains if you take that week off and go on vacation and enjoy yourself than always working hard.
Your muscles actually get stronger when you rest, because that's when they're repairing and getting stronger. If you think about it.
Right. There's this really, I don't know if y'all have heard of the ACEs study. It's this really famous study in the counseling world. And it was by Kaiser Permanente, and they studied, I mean, tons of people, and it was a longitudinal study, so studied them over the course of their life, and essentially have said that what happens in childhood, if you have these adverse childhood experiences, it then goes on to affect your physical and mental health functioning later in life. And you can go online and take like the ACEs test and all these things. But it speaks to this idea of like repair, right, and chronic stress. And so if we're in stressful situations, and our brains don't know the difference between like lifting a weight is a stress in a lot of ways to our body, so is like being attacked by our bear. And our brain, it just is all the same physical reaction, right? Our brain is like not like, oh, that's a good kind of like stress, and that's a bad kind of stress. It's just all stress, right? And so we need to have a break from the bears in our life, which includes the quote unquote good productive things too, because we're stressing our bodies when we pick up heavy things or we run long distances or we push ourselves, right? We can't distinguish between like, oh, actually that's not, I shouldn't release cortisol because that's a weight. You know, like our brains don't, that's not how that works, right? So we have to have that time to integrate and repair. Any other things that people in your toolbox that you do when you're...
Regardless of what I do, I allow myself to not accomplish anything.
Ooh. How do you do that? Since we just talked about how important productivity is.
I tell my husband I'm healing, I'm on vacation.
Ooh.
So no expectations.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes, please, no expectations, yeah.
I was gonna say too, just like adjusting what you can do for movement. So like all fall, I was dealing with like a family, well, ongoing, but family crisis, and it was pretty stressful all fall. And I've been dealing with some like blood work issues too, and like I major fatigue, and literally the only thing I could do was walk my dog. And I was like, and I just kept having to tell myself like, this is movement, this is all you can do right now, this is the chapter you're in, right? And it was like, you know, it just reminded me of 6 years before when I couldn't really do anything else either, and it's a little PTSD on that whole topic, but it's like helpful to be like, okay, I can still move my body, and this is still something.
Yeah.
And that was helpful, like, to think about.
So I'm not sure, like, it fits into the same kind of idea as this, but I think one of the tools that, if you've had more than one injury, which I suspect most people in this room have, is the memory of recovering previously, and how you did it, and what things you can, how to recreate that to have, you know, potentially the same successful kind of experience.
Yeah.
And maybe it takes longer, or maybe it takes less time.
Yeah.
But I just think having that, your memory can be a tool
Absolutely.
in the box as well.
Absolutely. Yeah, we'll talk about a little bit later, like that's one strategy, right? Is we call it visualization or imagery. Because our brain also doesn't know, if I think of something, right, and I imagine myself coming in and I'm like, okay, I'm lifting weights, I'm having a great workout, our brain doesn't distinguish that thought and that visualization between actually doing it, right? And so the more we can visualize doing something successfully, even if it's fake and we're not like actually doing the thing, the more likely then when you have to do the thing, you do it very well and you have more mastery of that thing. And so that's a huge part of how we can recover really well, is like, okay, I can't walk right now, but I can visualize what it's like to walk, and I can see myself, and just that action teaches our body how to recover so that then we can walk better, we can do the thing better. which is really, brains are really fascinating in that way. Anything else we wanna add to our list of things?
Okay. Piggybacks on no expectations, but being very comfortable asking for help.
Ooh, yes. Yes.
I paint my nails.
Yeah, how many of you just love to ask for help? No, okay, okay. Yeah, usually, we're very independent here in Tucson Valley, and we like to do it all ourselves, but this is really, really important. Any other tools we wanna add to the toolbox of things that you already have?
Probably goes without saying that if you have an established relationship with a counselor already, it's nice to have that already in your toolbox. So my last concussion, I had concussion for my PT for my concussion, and I had PT for my mental health.
Nice.
With a therapist that already knew me, so knew that my brain patterns were off.
Yeah.
And then
Yeah.
we find progress.
Yeah, mental health is not just for crisis, right? I mean, I love when clients are like, you know what? I just kind of want to come in and chat and like, life is kind of okay, but like, I would much rather you see me when something very minimal is happening so that we can build rapport, so that then when inevitably, right, because life is life, we're all going to experience something, whether it's a physical injury or a loss or grief, so that we already know each other and I can make that determination of like, oh, is this normal, not normal? I mean, Lindsay, I think you had a I think your experience of people not recognizing, you know, your TBI and your mental health, how they were connected is a like great example of that, right? It wasn't until somebody, a really smart provider was like, wait, this isn't how she this is out of the norm, and like,
Did any of your like friends notice your mood changes?
Oh, yeah.
Cause like
Oh, yeah, I was
he
weird.
said
I
I
was
was a
weird.
sad girl.
I was weird.
Yeah.
For sure. But none of the providers I saw for the first,
Okay.
well, actually, the provider that figured it out didn't actually know me either, who's here, who's my current counselor again, but she asked if I had ever had any head injuries in my intake, which I don't think any of the other like 9 counselors I'd seen through all the places I'd been asked. And I was like, you know, I had these concussions, but I did hit my face really hard 9 months ago. And she's like, you know, you can get depression from a head injury. So I was like, oh, no.
I mean, and this is another reason why, like, we think about, like, what is our support network, right? And does our support network involve not just friends and family members, but other professionals that ask really good questions and that can know when something is off, right? And so I think that's like trainers too, and like you guys knowing each other at the gym, and this goes back to something that we feel really passionate about at the coalition, is community care, right? This is a community, this is a third space for y'all that, you know, you come into, you see each other, and maybe some of you know each other really well, but some of you like might not, but at least you have sort of a baseline of like how this person normally is. And so that then if something is off, you can kind of be like, ugh, like that, I don't know, like should I check in on you? Like what's going on? And so don't discount that like it's really important to build like a really strong web of care that can give you that feedback. Because sometimes we don't always recognize it in ourselves, right? Okay, a lot of what we are talking about and the tools, we call this psychological flexibility. Can I pick on somebody who wants to do something? Anybody? It's a very easy volunteer experience. Okay. Okay, I'm just writing the word injury on here so everyone can see, fan away. Okay, I want you to hold this up in front of your face. Okay. For the rest of the time. Just kidding. If you have this in front of your face, how well can you see me interact with the rest of the room?
Very poorly.
Yeah. It's kind of all you can focus on, right? Okay. If you try to push it away, so put your hand on it and try to push away. How long could you do this?
Not
The
forever.
rest of the time, right? We're just gonna be here hanging out, trying not to think about it, pushing it away, not, doing everything you can to focus on something else besides how injured you are. You probably couldn't do this very well, right? Could you hug a loved one? Could you cook dinner? Could you participate in other life activities that you enjoy?
I was talking about those things.
Okay, great. Okay, now I want you to just hold this in your lap. Could you interact with the room now?
Better,
What about cook dinner now?
probably,
Hug a loved one now?
totally.
Right, did I take the entry away from you?
No.
What did we do?
Moved it out, main focus.
Change our perspective.
Yeah, we just changed the relationship, right? So you're still injured, it's still there, we didn't fix it. We just changed our proximity to it, or our attachment to it, or what we're trying to do with it, right? And so like, is it perfect? Like, is it comfortable if you're like, okay, like I gotta carry this around and like have this in my lap? Like, no, but you could do that a lot better than solely focusing on it or trying to push it away, right? That's psychological flexibility, and hopefully, you guys, that's what we want to happen when you're injured, right? How do I learn how to live with this thing that I don't particularly like, that's uncomfortable, and I can still stay connected to what matters or what's valuable or what's important to me, even if I have this thing that I don't necessarily really like and I don't want to carry around anymore. Without making it our whole focus and our whole identity, and without trying really hard to get rid of it. Was it harder when it was like in your face, or was it harder when you were actively like pushing it away?
In my face.
Yeah, say more about that. What made that part difficult for you?
I couldn't see other things happening around me. I had
Yeah.
less awareness.
Yeah. Do you, and this is in general, do you feel like you have a tendency to either be really focused on things or try really hard to sort of like avoid or push them away? Do you want to be brave and say which one they have a tendency to do?
I think I'm an avoider.
I just want to put that over there. I want to get rid of it. I don't want to think about it. Anybody else do the opposite, or you're just like, this is all I can think about and focus on? So psychological flexibility has 6 different components. This is a lot of information. You don't have to memorize all this. But essentially the first thing is just naming that it's here, right? Like, I have an injury. This is present. It is here. Doesn't mean we have to like it. We just have to be like, yep, okay. This is what's happening. This is reality. And then this is that fancy word that I mentioned earlier, cognitive diffusion, right? I can notice my thoughts without getting caught in them. So there's a neuroscientist who actually experienced a stroke and then went on to do some research about that. And according to her, believe it or not, thoughts, feelings last only about 90 seconds if you do not hit the replay button, right? So that means something comes up, you know, like I touch the stove and it's hot, and if I can just feel that and not then get caught in the story of that, those sensations will come and go in 90 seconds. Not a long time, but a lot of what we do then is we touch the hot stove and then we tell ourselves a story about that experience, right? And then even further, a story about why we're wrong or bad or we messed up or how we shouldn't have done that or how stupid or awful or terrible we are. And we get really fused to our thoughts. And so part of this is like, how do I separate myself and what I'm thinking from the thing that happened to me and not tell myself this big story about it and keep hitting the replay button over and over and over again.
I like to call that not letting it live rent-free in my head.
Yeah, yes, yep. And then you have some control over that, right? You can switch your attention, right? You're not like at the mercy. You don't have to do every thought that pops into your head. Although they can be really loud and very convincing sometimes, right? And this is, you know, it's helpful then, right, if we just come back to like, what is happening right now in this moment? Not what I'm thinking about I should be doing, not writing my grocery list, which I'm sure some of you have already done in the, hour that we've been together, right? But how do we come back to like right now in this moment? This one is really hard for a lot of us to think about, that you're not your body and you're not your body in this moment, and you're not this moment, you're not your thoughts, you're not your feelings, because you can notice and observe all of those things, then you are something different and something separate. A lot of people argue with me and they're like, that's not true, I totally am my thoughts and my feelings. If I'm not that, then what am I? If I'm not my body, then what am I? Who am I? So I like to go to a real extreme, right? And so if I cut off your arms and legs, would you still be you? Right? So you're more than your body, right? If you can notice but not like get hooked by your thoughts, then clearly you're not your thoughts, right? So we think about like it's sort of like the weather, right? Like you imagine the sky, right? The sky is the weather but separate from the weather, right? It just holds what's going on. And so then how do you stay connected to what really matters to you as part of the movement that you can do, or the parts of movement that are beyond just moving, right? So a lot of us, we go ski at Targhee because we like skiing, but also because we like community, or we like getting outside, or we value something that's beyond just the act of movement. And so when you're injured, how do you connect to that part of your value and your why? It goes beyond sort of just, well, it's skiing, and I value skiing, Sarah. It's like, okay, well, what else? What else happens when you're on the hill, and how do you recreate those values in a more manageable way if you can't do that activity anymore? And then how do you take, actions to actually do it, right? And so if, wow, I'm injured and I can't ski, and you gave a brilliant example, right? Like, I'm gonna host people over and have community in my house, right? And so maybe I'm missing this part of movement because I'm injured, but I can recreate some of the other values around that movement in a different way. Okay, got it? You're gonna remember all of these and practice them when you get home, right? I'm gonna talk about radical acceptance. Part of being able to sort of diffuse from our thoughts, right, is reframing how we talk to ourselves. And moving from sort of like all or nothing, black and white, to sort of rewording, like, what am I telling myself, about my injury, about my body? Again, we know that the more we can visualize a good outcome, and health and healing, then the more likely we are to heal faster. There's some really interesting studies about how folks use self-talk and mantras and visualizations in healing. Because again, our brains don't know the difference between what's real and what we're imagining. I love using Alice Wong as an example of this because I think by Teton Valley standards, right, we would all say her mobility is pretty severely limited. And since most of us find a lot of value and meaning in how we move our bodies, I think thinking through like, okay, well, if I have limited mobility because I'm injured, like, how do I still have a meaningful life and do good work? And she's an amazing example of how somebody with limited mobility created a brilliant, beautiful, amazing life and had a huge impact. She's she just died last year, disability rights advocate, right? And really changed the course of her life and a lot of other people's life because she stayed true to what was really important and valuable and meaningful for her, and then took those small actions in ways that a lot of us don't, and we're fully able-bodied, right? So just because we're injured doesn't mean that we can't stay connected to what's important and what's valuable. So we're gonna practice. Grab a partner, and we're gonna just answer some questions. And I can pair you up if I So if you think about, right, what if we, yes, okay. Answer your question. Does anybody sort of want to briefly share sort of what came up as you shared with your partners?
Movement means freedom to me.
Ooh, freedom.
Freedom is not feeling constrained.
Okay. Alright, freedom. What else does movement mean?
Brave.
That's not how you spell that. Don't look at that. That's not.
Staying supple, like not preventing stiffness and keeping blood flowing.
Also, where
She came up with
I didn't
that.
know that either. So move along.
Just creative expression.
Ooh, that's a good one.
What was that?
Creative expression, it's a way of expressing yourself through movement.
Creative expression. Y'all probably can't remember what I do. Creative expression. What else?
Feeling good in your body.
Oh, feeling good.
Embodiment.
Yeah. Embodiment.
What else?
Emotional regulation.
You know, I like that one.
So it can be therapeutic, but it's not therapy.
Thank you for saying that. Okay, so this probably is not big enough for the soapbox that I need for how much I hate, and I'm going on record. I'm not afraid to say this. People of Tucson Valley, stop saying that skiing, hiking, biking, I don't even know what else I meant. Whatever else it is, rafting is your therapy. It is not your therapy. It's not your therapy. Do you know why it's not your therapy? Because you are out alone, oftentimes doing those things in your own head. And yes, sometimes we do them together in groups, but oftentimes if we're saying hiking or skiing or biking is my therapy, we are out doing that activity by ourselves with our own little brain and our own little emotions. And as we know, feelings and thoughts are not facts. And there is no one out in the wilderness with you to say, that is a really bizarre and inappropriate and unkind or unhelpful thought that you're having. You get none of that feedback. You're just out there like, yeah, that is right. Yeah, that is true. So it is not therapy, okay? That's my rant. Thanks for coming to my TED Talk. I will give it any time. It can be therapeutic, but it is not your therapy because you don't get any outside feedback. Or you don't get any challenging. Like, it can help you move through things, process things. Please go for a walk before you yell at your children or your husband or your coach or whoever. But our toolbox has to be a lot greater than like, I don't need to go to therapy because I just go ski. It doesn't teach you how to be in relationship with humans, and that's what therapy does, right? It takes everything that's going on in here and helps reorganize it so that you can have a healthier relationship with yourself and with others. That doesn't happen when you're alone doing your activity. I'm so sorry to tell you that. So thank you. I appreciate how you worded that, as you can tell.
I feel like you get a nerd usually.
I wonder why I need to be third.
Alright, Lindsay, here's my rant.
I was like, oh, here we go, I've heard this before.
And then when people on social media make, when other companies or organizations in town make social media posts that then say such and such is the therapy, it's all I can do not to be like, at the Mental Health Coalition, we think that that's not right.
You actually should.
It's like, I feel like on wheels. Running is not your therapy and food is not your medicine. It
Yes.
can be medicinal, it can
Yes.
be therapeutic, but it's not. Food is food, running is running.
Yes, 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 thank you, thank you. Anything else after that very long tangent, that movement means, or that we value about movement?
Community.
Yeah.
focuses you on the moment, like call it the flow state or whatever else, it blocks out
Yeah,
everything else.
It removes a lot of stimuli.
Yeah.
It's a sphere of competence for me in some ways.
Yeah, so like it's a helpful way to sort of just like turn down the volume of things.
I think when I feel like I'm strong and like capable of doing movement and I feel like I'm fit, then it like translates into like all other parts of my life.
Yeah,
Like
absolutely.
the confidence.
Yeah, like
Yeah.
confidence and strength and like capability.
Yeah, we also, there's this thing in psychology and counseling, right, that we call mastery experiences. And so if we have a mastery experience in one area, it often makes us feel good about ourselves, so then we can go on and have more mastery experiences in other areas. And so then when we feel, right, like we're incapable in this huge way, especially if it's something that is really tied to our identity, then we sort of, then it's right, then it's like, oh gosh, well then I must be a terrible employee now, or a bad partner, or a friend, or whatever, and so we can get caught in that like sort of shame spiral. And so having this sort of mastery experience or feeling strong in one area is, helps us to translate those skills to other places. Anything else that it means?
This is related. Someone said embodiment, but
Yeah.
and related to that is it's a way for me to connect with and sort of like harness or enjoy the wisdom of my body and kind of like physical intelligence that I don't always have access to, but when I'm mountain biking downhill really fast and my body knows what to do in a non-cognitive way, it's really nice to remember how smart this whole thing is.
Yeah.
My body doesn't know what to do in that situation.
Bracing for the crash.
Yes.
If we look at this list, right, because these are some really great things that y'all came up with as far as like why this is important to you and why it sucks when you can't do it, right? So are there other ways, right? Like can we match these two lists together, right? Are there some of the things on this list over here, your coping skills and strategies, that also help you feel the things that are important to you about being able to move pain-free?
Well, the one thing that struck me as soon as somebody said it was mastery of, mastery of whatever it is that you're doing.
Yeah.
Gain mastery in it.
Yeah.
But if you gain mastery in one of those other things over there,
Yeah.
while your downtime is over here,
Yep.
then it's really kind of a cool thing.
Yeah.
And it makes you feel more confident maybe in other things that you're gonna do.
Ding ding. Yeah.
So.
Gold star. Nailed it. Right? Right, because the point is like, okay, I can, some of these, right? Because obviously, like enjoying the wisdom of your body, that can kind of be a tricky one. Like, how do I recreate that if I can't move in those ways anymore? But like creative expression, right? Like Lindsay, the first thing on the list is like an art class, right? Like emotional regulation, right? Going to therapy is over there. So how do we think about the components of movement that are important to me that I might miss when I'm injured? Are there these other ways that I can feel that part? And then go do them. Which, Lindsay brought up a good point. Does anybody know how to find a counselor in Teton Valley?
Oh, I guess you can ask friends. Right.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah. Because part of this, right, is like thinking about developing.
But they already have 696.
I know, I shouldn't have told you that. I should have told you that. So one of the things that the coalition actually does is I affectionately call it counselor matchmaking, and it's a free service for anybody in the valley. You can call us, you can text us, you can send in a web form, and we maintain relationships with the counselors, and we know that 90% of client change is based on their relationship and the felt sense that the person has with their therapist versus like what the therapist is like trained in. And so we sort of try to do counselor matchmaking and match people with therapists. So if you're ever like, wow, I'm really struggling and I don't know what to do or how to like expand that therapeutic support system or network, you can always call us and we'll help match you with somebody. And we also have a program where if you qualify, we'll pay for you to go to counseling 6 times for free, no cost to you. Which is a strategy, right, of preventing isolation. I think we sort of hit on this, right? Like if our whole identity is wrapped up in moving and all of our third spaces are built around movement and activity, suddenly if we're injured, right, then we can experience a lot of isolation. And loneliness and isolation also impedes our ability to heal. It's stressful on ourselves to be isolated. We're like pack animals. We need other people. So important that you think of all of the ways that you can still have that experience, that community. I think we kind of talked about positive self-talk, right? Like the way that you talk to yourself matters. It changes things inside of you. And then again, can you imagine what it's like to be healthy and well? Can you, we call it mental rehearsal, right? And so that's when you practice seeing yourself doing the things that maybe you can't right now. You really visualize that, you use imagery. And you set like smart, attainable, realistic goals, right? And so like Lindsay nailed that earlier, right? I'm like, oh, I can walk my dog, right? It's attainable, it's bite-sized, maybe it's not the full thing that you used to be able to do, but hey, I can do this one thing. I think these are just good habits, right? Like, Eden, you identified earlier, like, already having that established relationship with a counselor. And so what other habits can you cultivate when you're healthy and well, so that if and when you get injured or lose mobility, it's not as upsetting, right? It doesn't cause, such a huge impact. And I think it's strengthening these things, right? And knowing how, okay, I have some other tools in my toolbox that are outside of my sort of athlete or active body, that you're resting. Again, you're thinking about what it is I value, right? And values are usually like one word, and I'm doing those. And then I think it's sometimes like I looked at someone, it's like, how wonderful that terrible thing happened to you. It's an opportunity, right, to learn and grow. And can we just meet that with curiosity? And let how we're moving sort of evolve and be new. And like I think it's, you made a really great point about like, oh, I can master this other thing. So maybe my sport or my thing has been this, but like I can't do that right now. So wow, what a cool opportunity I get to learn something new or do something different. Any thoughts, takeaways, questions? It's all really hard. Any burning questions about anything mental health, injury related? Yeah.
How do you tackle the sleep thing? Because we're not extending that.
Yeah.
I know you guys never really touched on it.
Yeah.
Because that affects my health.
Yeah.
immediately.
Oh, yeah. So then do you feel, is that okay if I ask you a couple of like curious questions? So then is that I'm having trouble sleeping because my brain, I just have all this energy in my body that I haven't expended, and then I go lay down, and then I'm just like wired.
Well, it's two things. My knees does hurt when I turn over.
Yep.
So that kind of wakes me up sometimes. But I've noticed in the past, just if I'm not active for like a week, I'll just notice my sleep starts, the quality of my sleep starts
Absolutely.
going down. So
Yeah.
this is just a really long
Yeah.
period. So
Yeah.
it didn't even dawn on me that could have been an issue until you said it today.
Yeah. Yeah, and sleep is huge. It's like one of the key components of our mental health and physical wellness, right? It's when our body repairs itself. It's actually when we integrate memory, and so a lot of folks that have PTSD, we think that there's some connection for like sleep quality because we're not successfully integrating the experience and the memories because that happens while we're sleeping. And dreams and your sleep stages change if you're anxious or depressed, which is also really interesting. And so then it becomes a really keystone habit about like, hey, how do I get good sleep? There's all sorts of like sleep hygiene stuff out there. There's a really great book, and I'm gonna space the title of it, but it's like Acceptance and Commitment Therapy and Insomnia or something. Because there's some real good like cognitive behavioral things and habits you can develop at night if you find like, oh, I just can't turn off or I have all this energy. And that book is really great at walking through some very specific practices. And some of it is not getting caught up in the anxiety of not sleeping, right? Because how much is it like we wake up and then we're like, oh, I'm awake. It's 3 o'clock. It's 3 o'clock and I can't sleep and I have this thing that I have to do today. And then we're just spinning out because we're anxious about not sleeping, which then makes us not sleep. So it's like, and then you're just watching the clock. So there's some great, like, just, you know, I'm like, download the Calm app. Like, dude, there's like so many amazing like apps or strategies or cognitive behavioral practices that you can do in that moment to help sort of distance from that anxiety and that like activation that comes up when you're like not sleeping. There are also some sleep specialists in town that I think it's helpful to just sort of meet with and be like, hey, I'm not, like, this is a big deal. I need to get good sleep. And also sleep apnea. We live at a high elevation, which means we don't have as much oxygen as other people, and women in particular often get misdiagnosed or underdiagnosed for sleep apnea.
I do a very, very mild case.
Yeah.
But the CPAP machine was just,
awful.
I was gonna throw it up.
Yeah, it's pretty terrible. But knowing that that could be a part of it too, is thinking through like, how do I have supportive sleep, you know?
There were sleep specialists in this one.
There's some people that do like coaching around sleep. There's a couple like either in this side and more on that side, but yeah, they'll come up with like a planned routine. And a lot of it is stuff that we know, we just have trouble practicing.
I have pretty good sleep hygiene, that's where I get stuck, because I'm like, what is wrong with me?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And some of it is just like, again, are there ways during the day that you can sort of expend that energy, knowing that it might not be the way that it used to be, and then how when you're laying in bed, you don't get caught in that story of like, now I'm in pain, or now I'm not sleeping, and now I'm like, I'm hooked myself, right? And then I'm just like spinning out, instead of just being like, okay, it's fine, I'm not sleeping, you know?
I got a eye mask that has helped me at least a little bit. It helps me in the sense of like, if I wake back up, then I don't look at the clock and see 3 a.m.
Yes.
I'm spinning on that.
Yes.
So it
Yes.
just like helps me get back to sleep if
Yes.
I wake back up.
Yes. Yeah, not looking at the clock is huge, right? Because then we just get all knocked out about it.
Something I said with mine yesterday, a woman in her like 40s or so, who was doing waking up spinning. Basically, she takes walks, she's a teacher, but she's always having productive walks. Always
Yes.
listens to music, always
Yes.
listens to a podcast. It's like, have you ever just let your brain wander so that way you can actually kind of expend some of that emotional energy? That way it's not just all hitting you at night.
Yeah.
She was like, I think it's gonna feel triggering at first, because
Yes.
you're so used to being stimulated, but you have to let that energy out somewhere.
Exactly.
It's all gonna crash
Yes.
at night.
Yeah. And oftentimes we fill our lives so full and so busy that we don't have time to think those thoughts or feel those feelings. So then when it's quiet, our brain is like, oh, this is a safe time for me to do all of that. And so one strategy, particularly with anxiety and racing thoughts, can be like literally setting a timer and being like, okay, for 15 minutes, I'm gonna think all those things. And then when the timer goes off, I'm just gonna be like, okay, I'm done. I'm putting it away now. But how do we sort of create more room and more space in our day, so that at night, it's not bubbling up then, when we really need to like turn it off. Having a journal by your bed and sort of just like offloading some of those things can be really helpful, writing it down, having a timer that's not your phone, because if you pick up your phone, you will look at it and you will then fall into a social media hole. Don't do it. Sleep with your phone in a different room.
It's in my closet.
Yeah. sleep is hard, cause like what works for one person, like sometimes doesn't work for another